Spare. War games. It's now autumn, and Harry finds himself in the Yorkshire Dales. For those of you not familiar with the United Kingdom, this is an area of some beauty. Rolling hills, dales in the north of England. He then describes the environment and saw that it was breathtaking. And he said it felt rather bad to be pretending to obliterate a particular place that was so breathtakingly beautiful. He explains his drill each day. He'd have his breakfast and then head out. He'd start speaking to the aircraft, and then he would talk about what they would be doing, and he'd talk it through the sky, talk it through the countryside. And he said that he was told to picture the world as a hierarchy, and he said that's something that he thinks he can handle. And he said that he enjoyed the rhythm of the speech and the way that it was all done. He described the way that the pilot was flying and the various terminology that he would use. And it was clear that again he found a sense of purpose in all of this and found the weeks rolling by. He undertakes this training and then explains that once he had been trained, he had to become combat ready, which meant that he had to master various controls. And a control was apparently an interaction with an aircraft. So you would imagine that two aircraft come into your airspace and you'd say, "Good morning, this is Dude 01 and Dude 02. We're a pair of F-15s with 2 PGMs on board, plus 1 JDAM. We've got a plane time of 90 minutes and we are currently 2 nautical miles east of your location at flight level 150, waiting for talk on." He needed to understand precisely what they were saying and how to respond to them in their relevant jargon, but he explained that he wasn't able to do this in the normal areas. The problem being was that he'd be spotted, someone would tip the press, and he'd be back where he started. So it suggested that he go somewhere more remote, which happened to be Sandringham. So he headed out there and he got a room at a small hotel, which is called Knight's Hill, which is where the bodyguards would normally stay. And he said that the privacy was thrilling, and again we have to get this mention of privacy, and you know that what has happened here is that Harry's wife has issued an instruction to him that there's certain themes that need to be woven into it, and she'll have instructed the ghostwriter similarly. And one of them, of course, is to keep banging on about privacy, the need for privacy, the incursions into privacy, the fact that they can't get any privacy, not that they're really seeking it, of course. And here it gets brought up again, though he says that he enjoyed the privacy apart from one woman who evidently recognised him and stared at him goggle-eyed. He said that his existence was down to one interesting task, and he would contact Chelsea, and he said that he knew that he cared about her, but apparently she felt unseen. I doubt that Chelsea Davy used such a term. That's a Harry's wife term, which he's picked up. I'm not heard, I'm not seen. And basically it would appear that he speaks to Chelsea and she's kind of complaining about the fact that he's somewhat detached. And he's like, well, surely you must understand I'm about to go to war, so I'm going to be focused on other things. And apparently he said that he needed to do it all. And basically he had to do it with all his heart and soul. And if there wasn't any left over of anything else, well, he was sorry. I don't know if this is him basically saying, I then binned Chelsea because she complained about me being detached. And I said, well, are you surprised? I'm going off to war and it's something that I need to do. So suck it up, buttercup. Anyway, he said thereafter that his father knew that he was living at Knight's Hill, but he never dropped in. And it seems like he's a complaint, but he rationalised it by saying, I guess he was giving me space. He also then, which seems to be a bit of a jibe, suggesting that he was still in the newlywed phase, even though the wedding was 2 years ago. However, one day he turns up, And he explains about his father could see how good Harry was getting at his new job. He then goes on to explain that his father's always been a worker, and it was a kind of religion for him because he's always been trying to save the planet, and that he'd been trying to warn people for decades about climate change, and that he'd been mocked by the press repeatedly. And that him and William would find their father late at night among bulging bags of correspondence, and that he'd be falling asleep at his desk, and they'd shake him awake with a piece of paper stuck to his forehead. The fact is also that his father believed in the magic of flight. He was a helicopter pilot himself, after all, and he enjoyed Harry steering the jets over the marshy flats, although various residents weren't as enthusiastic as the jets roared by, rattling their roof slates. And Harry said that he loved seeing his father. It was always enjoyable to spend time with him. And he then saw his father drive away and talked about it in terms of, if he would, as tracking a vehicle. And then he decided that he caused a typhoon to track his father, almost shattering the windows of his Audi, but he then said ultimately he spared him and instead blew a silver barn to smithereens, of course, figuratively speaking, as part of the war games. Again, a glimpse into the interaction between his father, who evidently showed pride in what Harry was achieving, because Harry, of course, is an extension of him, but again demonstrates the coldness that seems so often mentioned by Harry in relation to his father. He then moves on to Afghanistan, which is a sizable chunk of his recollection, and it'd be interesting, after what he explained about being in the army previously, what he found when he went to Afghanistan. Of course, repeatedly it's been said that he was Bunker Harry, that he wasn't on the front line, that he didn't engage with anybody, that of course he was basically protected by the Gurkhas and just spent his time playing on the Xbox and didn't really get involved in it all. That's what the rumours have always been about him. What light will he shed upon his time in Afghanistan? Let's find out.